Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people.
Imagine all the people. Can you imagine that if nobody ever got sick anymore, if there were no war anymore, and everyone was happy and healthy, there wouldn't be heart disease, diabetes, or cancer. And imagine that everyone would be happy from now on forever. Good evening. The Health Wave is on the air. I'm Victoria Barayev, and my special guest in the studio tonight is Dr. Rebecca Paden, a classical osteopath and board-certified naturopathic doctor. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Rebecca. I know you came from a very busy day of seeing patients today, all day, and I really appreciate you for being here tonight. And as a reminder, our phone number in the studio is 770-727-0777. You have a chance to call the studio or write to us on our Radio Live Facebook page and ask a question during this hour. Welcome, Dr. Rebecca Paden.
Thank you for having me, Victoria.
Thank you. Just wanted to start by saying that chronic disease in the United States is on the rise. And heart disease being at the top of the list, followed by cancer, and further on. And this growth usually occurs, we all know that, in the developed countries rather than developing countries, and strikes more and more people at the younger age, unfortunately. Sadly, most people who don't even have any major health problem going on, they still are off somewhat mentally, emotionally, physically. You know, we walk around either bloated or gassy or, I don't know, foggy, swollen. You know, something is going on, constipated, moody, sneezy. There's always something's going on. So we're never in the balanced state of our health, unfortunately. And the thing is, everyone is afraid of cancer. Right, nowadays.
It's a scary word.
It's a scary word. And guess what? You know that. The most common question that the doctors are asked is, do I have cancer nowadays? And there are a few alarming reasons that when the doctors can suspect cancer, I don't have to tell you. One of them is a persistent fever, for example, right? But picture this. Let's picture this. I wanted to bring a really good analogy given by Dr. Alejandro Younger in his book Clean. Very interesting analogy. You know, in India, in the school of meditation, they teach to look at Earth as a living organism. So basically, our planet Earth is a living organism, just like our human body. And we have rivers that represent the arteries, like in the human body. We have forests that are like lungs, and we have mountain ribs, mountain chains that show, that really represent our human body, ribs or bones in general. And then look at a lot of human beings circulating by billions, like body cells. And can you imagine if one of those cells gets sick, the entire organism, the entire body gets sick? So now, let's go back to cancer. Can you imagine cancer cells? Cancer cells are those cells that forgot how to do their chemistry, geography, grammar, math. They really forgot how to behave among themselves. They start killing each other. They kill each other, they kill other cells in the neighborhood, and then they grow to reproduce so fast without concerning about other cells or about any natural laws. They don't care about food, if there is enough food for everyone. They don't care about other things. All they want to do is just conquer other territories. And honestly, they are so microscopic, but they are eliminating toxins into the circulatory system, basically able to kill a very strong organism. And I mean, this is a great analogy. And what does it remind you of? If you think about it, it reminds you of the earth as a living organism being in a very critical condition. Who makes those chemicals and puts them into the food and into our cleaning products? Really, who contaminates the rivers, clogging them, basically clogging the arteries of the earth? Who cuts the trees, basically destroying the lungs of the earth? Who acts crazy and erratically, forgetting how to behave properly? Us human beings, who are so off mentally, physically, and emotionally. Us human beings. So the earth is not able to neutralize its toxicity, so to speak. And it's killing the earth. It's killing this big living organism. Dr. Younger, he probably would be right by saying that the planet has cancer and we are it. We are that cancer. So everything starts within us, us human beings. Would you agree, Dr. Rebecca?
I would agree totally. Excuse me. We are made up of 60% water. And so our water resources needs to be the most important thing. I'm sorry. So when we drink water, we need the freshest possible water. And it's just like you say, our resources are tainted. Our water now that we drink from a faucet is water it's a contained system. Water from runoff on the streets, water from place, even including. There we go. All right, now I can hear. All right, but water is our most important resource, and it is very poisoned and polluted.
Exactly. So can we start by asking you to explain us what really cancer is and, what causes it?
My definition of cancer, it is the body's inability to rid itself of excessive toxins, because all of us actually have cancer cells, which scares a lot of people. Oh my goodness, I have cancer, but we all have cancer cells.
Which doesn't mean we have cancer.
Exactly, because those cells may or may not be doing anything dangerous or hazardous in our body. They're just there. But what happens is when we can't rid the toxins properly by our eating correctly, by getting fresh air, sunshine, rest, exercise, all these necessary things for our body, then what happens is cancer cells behave erratically and grow. Our immune system can't properly heal the body when we don't take care of it properly.
So basically, we can also say that cancer is a problem of immunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Having a strong immune system is everything, and there's only 6 ways to take care of that, and we call them the 6 best doctors, which, like I said, are sunshine and exercise and water and rest, diet, exercise. All these are so necessary to having a healthy body.
Very interesting. Let's repeat them. So it's sunshine,
water, exercise, rest, diet, and which one do we leave off?
One more. There's got to be one more.
Water, exercise, rest.
But 5 is good enough.
5 is good enough because
important.
The most important one, like I say, is water. But diet is the essential to feed our bodies properly.
Exactly. It lays in the basis of everything, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yes. But let's go back. I want to take a step back and actually introduce you to our audience, to our listeners, to our viewers. You are an osteopath. What is the difference? Many people don't know the difference between osteopath and MD.
Okay. They're very, very similar. We study the same things. We take the same length of courses. We have residency, internship, externship. We study the same things from cardiology to rheumatology, all of the different things. We do rotations at the hospital. We can perform surgical and prescribe medication and things like that. So we can do the same things. We take the same board test. Where we differ is that we tend to be much more holistic. But a lot of the listeners out there may think they've never seen an osteopath, and if they check, most of the time they may find out their doctor is an osteopath.
Oh, interesting.
There are quite a few of us out there.
So you go to the same type of medical school,
and we work in the same hospitals. So we have hospital rights at all of the local hospitals if we so apply.
Oh, very interesting. I know, Dr. Rebecca, why did you choose to go into this route to become an osteopath versus an MD?
Well, I think it's very important, and I'm not saying MDs don't do this particularly, but it's more common as an osteopath to try to find out what the cause is of someone being ill, not just treating the actual event of what's going on. You have to find out what happens so that you can prevent it in the future. Prevention is very important.
Everything.
It is
Exactly.
everything.
But unfortunately, in this country, we're more focused on treating the disease rather than, doing the prevention steps, right?
We've been programmed to take a pill.
Right.
The doctor will see you for 6 or 7 minutes and write you a couple of prescriptions, and you're out the door.
But only after you already have symptoms.
Right. But what would be best is if you didn't have the symptoms at all because you were preventing this. And again, preventing it from those 6 best doctors, as we call it, because it's important to make sure that you're living a healthy lifestyle.
Exactly. I know that you lead your medical office called Thermalife, which is in Duluth, Georgia. And
Lawrenceville. It's in Lawrenceville.
Lawrenceville, yes. Georgia. For people to know, the phone number there is 770-545-8590. 770-545-8590. You're welcome to call and make an appointment with Dr. Rebecca. Would you tell us more about the services that your office offers?
Okay. Well, we work very naturopathically, and a lot of people don't know what the term naturopathic means, but we try to help someone to get well naturally without pharmaceuticals. We take care of all ages, from newborns all the way to the elderly, and we take care of them naturally. We have a full line of medications, but they're natural medications. They're not synthetic medications. And most of our patients, if they have to go on a medication, balance the body, and they're off of the medications because medications are for sick people. And so what we do is we do physicals. We most importantly do something called thermography, and that's infrared technology. Mm-hmm. It's not new, but a lot of people have never heard of infrared technology. We have a special room where we can measure the temperature of the body, and we can see signs of cancer 8 to 10 years before some of the other tests out there that are available. We can look at cardiovascular situations without having to invade the body with needles and dyes and radiation, chemicals, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And look at everything from gastrointestinal to structural back issues, headache causes, just numerous things that we look at the body for.
And I know that now thermography is recognized by the, Western medical field as well, the conventional medical field.
It is FDA approved. We have numerous doctors that work alongside us, oncologists, cardiologists, nephrology, different types of doctors that work along with us and refer their patients to us to have this procedure done, this test done, which is, again, no radiation, it's no pain, no contact, there's no claustrophobia, very small camera, and it's
I know, I've
simple
done this with you. It was great.
And painless.
And painless, exactly. I know that you also treat a lot of cancer patients. And I know that this is, I wouldn't make a mistake if I say this is your passion.
Absolutely.
To treat cancer patients. How come?
Well, my sister passed away when she was 32. She was too young for the so-called routing mammogram. And so by the time they caught the cancer, it was certainly too far for anything. She was extremely symptomatic, very sick, and died in her early 30s. And so it's always been a passion of mine to be a doctor. But cancer just seemed to be so simple to me because the body is a beautiful thing in how it works to heal. If you, for instance, receive a small cut, the body stitches it up nicely, and you're left in a few days with a little scar reminder not to do whatever it is.
Right.
And so the body can heal itself in such a beautiful way, and it's the same with cancer. The immune system will just take care of the cancer cells, and we've had a lot of amazing success, and yet there's nothing miraculous about what we do. It's all very simple.
But people don't believe that. People think, oh, if I got cancer, I'm going to die.
They do.
Which is not really true nowadays.
True, and it's also sometimes even worse because what they think makes them sick. Exactly. They come into my office with an attitude of sadness because they receive this diagnosis of cancer and they've already designed themselves to die of this when it doesn't have to be that way.
I know, our last radio show was we spoke to a psychologist and we touched up on this topic as well. I asked her opinion about cancer, and she deals a lot with cancer patients because this is such a huge thing, the emotional aspect of, a cancer patient. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, how you deal with this?
Well, I think for the first thing that I do when I have a patient come in that's sad, that is you have to let them know what's important is between now and the end. And it's not that that's close by. We have to talk about attitude. It is absolutely the first thing.
Everything.
It's everything. There's a little comic strip I've seen before about the two men that go to the doctor, and one of them is very sick and the other one is fine. And the doctor messes up the two diagnoses and switches them and calls the one that's a very healthy man and tells them that he has a very short time to live, and tells the other one who's very sick that he's doing fantastic. And the person who was a very, very healthy man
gets sick,
dies because he sets himself up to do that. The mind is a powerful thing. I'm sure they discuss that with how it can control everything. So we start with emotional discussions and learning to be happy and enjoy life. Quality of life is much more important.
First, how to treat this disease from the emotional perspective.
From the emotional perspective,
exactly. Absolutely. This is the most important thing before you even address physical, symptomatic changes.
Our office believes in mind, body, spirit, that's the way of health. If we always think when we go to the doctor about getting our bodies well, and that's absolutely important, but you have to have your mind and your spirit also healthy as well.
It's a very important point. But can we touch up just a little about the topic of inflammation? It's on everybody's mind. The study comes up here and there talking about the negative role of inflammation on heart disease, diabetes, cancer. I'm sure it has to do with cancer as well. Can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Well, just even on a simple basis, when we have some inflammation in our body, temperature goes up. So we always think when our children get sick, we need to check their temperature. And of course, that's what thermography does as well. Of course, it's not doing it in a small scale. We're looking at hundredths of a degree temperature change. And the reason that we look at that is inflammation in the vessels is cardiovascular issues. Inflammation in the body can create more and more problems. And so that's why we look to food, because food can be either building us up or tearing us down. And inflammatory foods create illness and problems in every respect.
So if we stay away from inflammatory foods, we would be much, much better off.
It would return health to the ill. That's the first thing after we discuss the stressors and upset patients and trying to help them look forward to happy quality life. Then we talk about inflammation and the foods that they're eating that may be causing problems.
Okay, so I'm sure everyone wants to know now, what are the inflammatory foods? The next question that wants to really be asked.
To me, the most inflammatory food is dairy. And I know a lot of people are really saying, oh, no, not dairy. That's my ice cream and my cheeses and all of the delicious foods.
It's very addictive food. We've discussed it before.
Very addictive food, but very inflammatory. And the other one is meat. Meat is very, the way in which meats are processed nowadays. There's hormones, there's steroids, there's antibiotics, and that is including the grass-fed and the all of the organics are still tainted with different things that cause disease.
So if we eliminate, or eliminate maybe a scary word, but let's say minimize to the minimum dairy and meat, then we can be sure that we don't get inflammatory agents into our body.
We'll feel instant, within 10 days, a total change of health from just eliminating or trying our best to eliminate those two foods.
Even personally, I can agree with that from my own experience. Yeah.
Definitely. And me as well. I have very recently become a very strict vegan. And it is very difficult at first. And then once you understand the foods that are causing the inflammation, you'll feel when you eat the wrong things, your body will tell you, this is not building me up. This is causing me to feel poorly.
Exactly. So the food usually, either it builds you up or it, takes you down.
That's true.
It makes you feel poorly, usually. But let me ask you this. Can you tell us a little about how does cancer develop? Some people think, I got stressed out and I got cancer. Cancer doesn't grow overnight. It takes years and years. And
it takes years. In fact, in just thinking about one of the most common types of cancer, breast cancer, it takes, they say that active cancer cells double in number every 90 days. And that sounds like a lot, but actually it takes around 7 to 10 years for cancer cells to show up on a mammogram, where we can see them in about 2 years on thermography because it's inflammation in the body. So they develop from inflammatory. Now, a lot of people talk about hereditary. And I think hereditary plays about 5%. Research shows about 5% is hereditary. And that more than 50% is from just poor lifestyle choices.
It's just like we say that the gun, hangs on the wall, but who loads the gun?
Right.
Exactly. Well, how does it develop? We know that it develops in stages, right? Develops
in different stages from an irritation. One of the things that my professor in college showed, his analogy, was the little dry skin scratching that people do on their arm, and it makes the little line if their skin is dry. And if you take those cells and look at them under a microscope, well, it's going to look like dry skin. But if you scratch again and again and again, make the area just a little bit red, and then look at those cells, they show some changes that don't look normal. Now, it's really just dry skin and scratching, but it's an irritation now. And you continue and you've created an inflammatory response in the body. And even though that's just something on your arm, it's really why we have lung cancer from someone who smokes. Not all people who smoke get lung cancer, but it's asking for trouble by smoking. It's asking for trouble by not leading a certain lifestyle with foods and with certain things. So the body is very, very much trying to heal itself all the time, but cancer will begin from bad choices, inflammatory responses, irritations, inflammations, and they are constantly, the body is trying to heal, but if you have that irritation, it will grow and develop into something if it's present in that organ or that area of the body.
So we can say then it manifests itself in the inflammation first. This is how we can see it.
That's correct. That's how it's usually viewed in when we're looking at pathology of cancer cells. It usually develops from irritation, inflammation, atypical cells, dysplasic cells, the cells just constantly changing from an aggravation of some sort.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying when we are able to detect it, to see it in the mammogram, let's say, right? That means the cancer has been there for at least 7 years?
7 years, 7 to 10.
7 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's rather advanced to a point then that there are obviously different types of treatment depending on your philosophy of treatments. Mm-hmm. But it's much smaller stage when it is detected in thermography, because we are looking not from an X-ray perspective, but we're looking from an inflammatory perspective to see where there is irritation. And it's the same with when we are sick. There's mm-hmm. an inflammatory response. It might be in our sinuses or our lungs or our ears. But that's why we run a temperature, as our body is heating the body to try and heal it.
To try to heal it, exactly. Once you get cancer, God forbid, where does it go first? What parts of the body?
Very vascular. That's why it's so common in breast tissue, in the lungs, in different places, is it loves healthy vascular tissue.
So vascular tissues are more soft tissues, right?
Soft tissues, most likely, yes.
So it affects liver,
lungs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those vascular tissues. We hear a lot about the acid and alkaline aspect, mm-hmm. even though it's a fairly new terminology, fairly new concept, acid, alkaline, but it's everywhere, and people talk about it without honestly understanding much about it. Mm-hmm. But how does acid alkaline balance? What role does it play in the cancer development?
Well, in watching the growth of cancer, in more acid situations, it grows much more rapidly. Now, it does grow in an alkaline environment as well, but not near as fast. Mm-hmm. And so obviously the first thing to do when we have a situation of cancer is to try and slow the growth. And so obviously you would want the patient to eat foods that alkalize the body. Mm-hmm. Because when the body is acid, it's very inflamed. There's a lot of illness in acidotic bodies, or very acid situations.
In a very acid situation. But when we say that the body is acid, how does it manifest itself? How can you say that the body? I mean, you do tests.
We do tests. In our office, for instance, we do something called an ionization test, where we're checking the saliva and we're checking the urine, so in and out. And we would like the body to be at least a neutral 6.4 or higher. A higher number means they're more alkaline. And of course, different foods that we eat will cause the body to be more acid or more alkaline.
Well, can we measure by how a patient feels to say he's more acid or more alkaline?
Generally, you can take a look.
How does it show if you are acidic? How do you feel?
Usually very weak, very pale, low energy is very common. And you can guarantee they've ate what we call the standard American diet, SAD, right. Because the foods that are common in a standard diet are fried foods, meat foods, dairy foods are very common. It's very hard to look at a menu in a restaurant and not see that the majority of the menu is going to be what meat. It's going to be a beef, a chicken, a pork, whatever.
And fried.
And it's going to be fried. And all of those things create inflammatory responses in the body and a very acid body. The foods that are going to be more alkalizing would be the vegetables and the fruits.
And
leafy greens, some starches. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are afraid of starches, but starches are very good in filling you up and they very healthy.
Let's say when we're sick constantly, when we get a flu or a cold all the time, is that a symptom, like an indication of being more acid?
Certainly is. The body is not able to fight off any type of infection or being exposed to anything. And so if they want to stay healthy and well, then they need to keep their body more pH balanced or alkaline.
So we can say that the illness starts with really watching these things, watching the symptoms you get. If you constantly get a cold or a flu, if you constantly feel tired and fatigued, if you don't get enough sleep and you don't have enough energy, that's already the signs of being acidic, which either you get better or you get worse. So if you get worse, you never know where it can lead your body.
Right. And it sounded again, like you mentioned, those 6 best doctors.
Right.
And
so everything comes back to the basics.
It does. And we don't look at the basics a lot of times. When we get ill, there's a pill for that, but there's not. We need to think much quicker about preventing the illnesses. Right now, everyone seems to have the flu, but the best way to prevent the flu is to have a strong immune system.
Or to have a flu shot?
No, please don't. Please don't. I don't. No.
You don't recommend flu shots?
I certainly don't. We have a cute little funny sign in our office about getting your flu shot. And the best thing is some nice elderberry syrup or some colloidal silver in a diffuser to help with congestion. It's been wonderful.
Very interesting. I just wanted to remind our listeners and our watchers that our guest tonight is Dr. Rebecca Paden, a classical osteopath and board-certified naturopathic doctor. Her office is in Lawrenceville, Georgia, called Thermalife. Phone number is 770-545-8590. You're welcome to call and schedule an appointment and get a physical done and get your thermography and make sure that you're healthy.
We see children of all ages, adults of all ages, and we're there to help to counsel and discuss what we can do to help someone achieve perfect health.
Excellent. I've been there. I have to admit, I loved it, and I, stick with Dr. Rebecca, and I was very fortunate to be able to invite her to be at the show tonight. So let's go back to the topic of cancer. Very interesting topic. How a lot of people say, I'm going back to the same question I think I asked you already before. People think that they get cancer from stress. I'm sure, stress has place there for, getting the disease. But what do you think about it? Don't we need some stress in life?
Well, life can be very stressful. I don't think we're going to have to look far to find that. Mm-hmm. But stress can make us very sick, and we can think ourselves sick. And there's so many people who are just sad and distressed over things. We turn on the television and to relax as a pastime, and we see the news and it talks about abuse and murders and deaths and all of the bad things that are going on in the world. And I understand the need to be informed, but at the same time, that's not entertainment, and it seems like it's not news if it isn't bad. And so we're bringing that negativity into our home, into our life, and we dwell on it because we have a visual, we remember it, and then we start thinking, life is just awful, and this world is awful, and everything is bad, and then we
have
pay
stressful jobs.
Absolutely. And
stressful children,
stressful relationships. And there's always something going on in our lives, and we need to use that to learn to be happy, to overcome that, and look for the beauty in life, in nature, and the happiness that makes us well.
But can stress on its own cause cancer?
I believe it does.
You believe it does?
I do, because most people don't know how to handle stress once they have it. Stress can be maybe a good thing if it's just a small amount. We have to learn how to cope with things. Coping skills are absolutely essential, but most people don't have those coping skills. And then if they go to the doctor and they find out something's wrong, whether it's cancer or heart disease or diabetes or high blood pressure, everything is numbers. They get some blood work done, and their triglycerides are high, or their cholesterol is high, or this number's high. I know someone who said, well, my doctor told me that it's not if I'm going to get this, but when I'm going to get this. So I might as well start taking pills for it to prevent this.
Wow.
But they're not preventing things.
Yeah, we see it everywhere, pills for prevention.
But it's not preventing anything. It really isn't.
So you're saying that stress on its own can cause cancer. Does that mean that someone who eats very healthy but gets stressed all the time from relationships and other factors can get cancer still?
Well, I think our bodies are in a constant state of trying to be healthy. They're trying to recover over things. But if you're in a constant state of being upset, your adrenal glands are going to be very unhappy, and they're going to try and recover. But if your body's constantly in a state of turmoil, then you're going to be weak. Your immune system is going to be weak. And that's when things like cancer, since we already have cancer cells in our body naturally, that's when abnormal cells will start to grow, when the immune system cannot go to work properly for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. That really does make sense. But Dr. Rebecca, what do you think about why do some people get cancer and some don't?
Well, like I said, I think 5% may be hereditary. So I'm really not going to give heredity a very large amount of weight here. I think it's poor choices in life, health choices, whether it's food choices, or right now most people spend all day long in a building. They're in the building with the carpets and the walls that are all have chemicals in them, and then we clean with chemicals. We don't get proper sunshine. We don't get proper exercise. When we exercise, we may go to the gym, but we don't generally go outside and get the fresh air and the sunshine when we exercise. Most people talk about how much sleep they had. They didn't get a good night's sleep, and sleep is essential for the body to restore itself. And then most people are on the run getting awful food. All of the restaurants completely loaded with fats, with salts, with fried foods, with meats and dairies, but very seldom can you go somewhere and order some broccoli or some good fruits and starches and vegetables when you're in a drive-through situation. Of course, obviously, it's not going to be the healthiest food, but we're in a very fast-paced society.
That's true. That's true. But we just talked about how cancer grows.
Mm-hmm.
Cancer grows rapidly, and it just, like weeds, it, puts its hands into everything, into the flower garden and conquering everything, right? Like anything that grows, it needs food. Children grow, they need food. Obviously, cancer has to eat something. What does it feed on?
Well, it feeds on very healthy tissue. So it looks for the healthiest possible tissue. And some of the things that traditional doctors, traditional medicine does to try and remedy the body of cancer is by poisoning it. And that sounds good. We all think of, if we have bugs in our house or something, that we go get some bug spray. We spray, mm-hmm. and it will get rid of that problem. And I know I've told you before, one of our analogies of the difference in our philosophy on chemotherapy, for instance, versus natural care, is that if you're sitting outside enjoying the morning and you find that you have mosquitoes in your yard, well, you can go to the local hardware store and pick up all sorts of poisons and spray the yard and kill the grass and the flowers and the plants and the trees, the shrubs. You kill it all. And you will kill some mosquitoes. But you won't kill them all. And then why don't you just get rid of the stagnant pond of water? So where the analogy is that it's the same with the human body. Mm-hmm. We can take chemotherapy and we can poison cancer cells, but at the same time, we're poisoning healthy cells and we're destroying the immune system. And a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, my cancer went into remission, and it's no longer detectable. Generally, it's because those cancer cells have gone deeper into the body where there's healthier tissue. And it's not as easy to detect, but it's still very present, just like the mosquitoes would be present if you were to spray all the bug spray. The point is, clean up the stagnant pond of water to get rid of mosquitoes, clean up a stagnant body by nutrition and the exercise and fresh air, sunshine, water. All of those things are essential.
Important.
Essential, absolutely.
Essential. We know Dr. Neal Bernard, the head nutritional researcher of the country. He talks about hormones, being like fuel on the cancer growth. So obviously we eat foods that contain those hormones that make cancer grow.
We don't even realize it, that we're eating those things. But all meats are injected with different hormones, different antibiotics, different steroids. It is what they must do. And a lot of people will say, but I buy organic, or I buy grass-fed, or I buy free range. Everything is healthier. But those are still there. It still has the hormones, and the hormones cause the body to react in an adverse way, a lot of times causing cancer to grow. It's one of the feeders of cancer.
On top of it, we know that fat itself, even in the human body, is like a factory for making hormones.
Right.
Isn't it true?
That is true. Our bodies, and some hormones we are obviously supposed to make, we're supposed to have a balance. And the problem is that when we eat foods that are inappropriate, it creates an imbalance in the body. And then that's when disease can take place.
So we're talking about animal protein, animal food, right? So, but everybody says how animal protein is important, like protein in general is important for us, especially for a cancer patient who takes chemotherapy, right?
Well, we need protein. That in order to for our cells to grow, our muscles, we need protein. And so I'm not against protein, but it's the source of the protein that's important. And research shows that basically we need at least 30 grams of protein a day. And what does that really look like? Well, it's not that much. It's not that much. And how many people do you know are protein deficient? It's not a deficiency that we're dealing with here in the United States. In fact, a lot of diseases, especially cardiovascular disease and cancer, is caused in diabetes directly from having too much inappropriate protein. And it's usually from a fatty meat type protein. So instead of that, there's much better proteins from nuts, from seeds, from beans and peas and green leafy vegetables. All of these things contain large quantities of proper proteins.
Plant-based proteins. There are
plant-based.
So many different sources. But we also know that the byproduct of animal protein, ammonia, it doesn't help the cancer cells to stop from growing, right? It makes them grow even more.
And the ammonia changes our pH to more acid. And then the cancer grows much more rapidly. Even people who have just normal residing cancer cells in their body, if they live in a situation where their body remains acid for long periods of time, not only do they feel weak and they sleep poorly and they can't think well, and but it also gives the opportunity for cancer cells to grow and develop and take control over the body.
Exactly, take control of the body. We cannot not mention the China study. The China project, a 30-year study led by Dr. Colin Campbell, who also proved, I think he was even surprised himself, what came out, the results that came out about the role of protein in the cancer growth.
Right. And the role of starch, which is another one that surprises, I'm sure a lot of listeners, but a lot of people that I talk with on a daily basis, that starch is not the enemy.
Can you please just spend a couple minutes talking about it?
Well, starch is, a lot of people are worried that it converts to sugar, and that's not really how the process goes. But what starch does, one, is it offers satisfaction to us. If we talk about, say, for instance, a potato, the inside of a potato doesn't do much nutritionally except fills us up. But the outside, not the complete outside, but the sub-skin of that potato contains 11 of the 13 essential vitamins and minerals. So when our bodies are hungry, when we're saying we need something to eat, it's not that we need a lot of food. We need good qualities of food, and then our bodies will receive the necessary vitamins, minerals, and nutrients it needs, and we won't be hungry anymore because it satisfies the nutritional needs.
So when we talk about starch, does it only represent itself in the potatoes, or what else can be starch?
Rice and beans and peas and whole grains and corn, and there's so many things that are considered a starch.
Well, we usually think that starch is something that you spray on the clothes when you iron it.
We do think that way, but potatoes are an excellent starch, and rice, and a lot of people are afraid of rice. And the healthiest people in the world are the Japanese, who eat a lot of rice. And the studies show that the second healthiest people on the earth are from Italy, and they eat a lot of pasta.
In Sardinia.
Exactly. And then number 3 is Costa Rica, where they eat a lot of potatoes.
Right. And also Loma Linda in California, we know, right? Dr. McDougall talks a lot about, the work of Dr. McDougall, John McDougall, is well worth of paying attention to learn more about the role of starch in our health.
He is absolutely an amazing man. I have worked with him, and he has written a book called The Starch Solution, which talks about how to gain or regain your health from eating starch as a 70% or a large portion of your diet being starch-based, which is where you're going to get your protein,
your calories,
but good calories, where it's people who eat a starch-based diet are slim. And so when you eat a starch-based diet, you lose down to the proper weight.
Exactly. You lose down the proper weight and you feel good. You have enough energy. You don't depend on having fats and like a lot of fat and protein. You get very well satisfied. And I'm speaking from experience, not only from the books.
It is amazing. I'll tell you from experience of being at Dr. McDougall's. He has a health clinic that he runs where it's a live-in program where about 50 to 55 people will stay there over a 10-day period. And when they first arrive, they get blood tests done. And then when they leave, they get blood tests done to see. You wouldn't think in 10 days there'd be a whole lot of change. But what's amazing is people who are insulin dependent with insulin pumps go completely off of insulin and have normal blood sugar. People who have elevated cholesterol, the numbers drop significantly. People with hypertension, with high blood pressure, will usually balance their blood pressure in 10 days. And those are people with very, very high blood pressure that I know personally.
And so interesting. You only have to give the body the right things and it starts to do the job on its own.
Immediately you notice difference. I had one of my cancer patients who went on a complete starch-based diet, on the McDougall diet, and she went to get her glasses. She went to the eye doctor to get a test because she said that she couldn't see anymore. And so the eye doctor says, well, the reason you can't see anymore is because your eyes are so much better that the prescription is going to have to change and need it's a lot less. And she was amazed at how.
Unheard of. What else do you recommend for someone who has cancer besides diet, sunshine, like the things that you already mentioned? Is there anything that can help to stop, avoid, or reverse cancer?
Well, there's numerous things. Each person is individual. Each cancer is individual. Each location of the cancer, the type of cancer. And so in my office, we discuss those things and what might be proper for that person. Because what our main focus is to build the immune system. So we start with diet, what they're eating, and help them adjust the diet. And then we see what vitamins and minerals and nutrients are deficient in their body by doing a simple urine and saliva test that I've mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And then based on that, we develop a program for them to help them balance that. We work sometimes alongside their doctor. If they want to stay in traditional medicine, we work with oncologists in helping to boost their immune system so that they're better able to handle their treatments. We do thermography to also observe how the treatments that we've recommended have helped their body to improve, how what is actually going on with the inflammation in their body. Very,
very interesting. So in your opinion, do some types of cancer adhere to the dietary changes better than others, or?
I have never seen any cancer not respond to a dietary change in a good way. Every type of cancer can be affected in a positive way from dietary changes.
Even if it's too late, even if it's in the late stage? What
is really too late? I think if someone cannot breathe, we have some problems, and it's quality of life, gentle exit. But we have had one particular patient. She was jaundice, so her liver was already starting to fail. Her doctor had told her she had approximately 3 weeks left to live. She needed to get her affairs in order and enter into hospice so that she would be comfortable. She could not stand. She was in so much pain. She had an excellent attitude. She said, I want to live. I want to do what I can. And we simply helped her body's immune system to grow, to become strong. And she went from that to cooking for our office, and she drove up to Michigan to visit her family and to Texas to see her son, and she went to her son's wedding. She regained quality of life.
Wow, that's amazing. But do you see among your cancer patients in the office, do you see a lot of people pass?
No, we have people who have adhered to our recommendation of lifestyle. We have not lost any patients that have adhered to that lifestyle completely.
That's amazing. I know you have a story of the lady who passed away, but she wrote an article in the paper.
Right. She did move, so she didn't continue with the treatment in Georgia. She ended up moving to Florida, but she lived 17 months from the time that she originally started our care, and she became sick and started to deteriorate once she went back on the traditional diet and moved to Florida. So wow. She did pass away, but but she did not continue with the same recommendations.
I see. I think we have a question. Can you please read us the question? Somebody wrote to us.
Alex Irina Wood asks, do you accept Kaiser Permanente insurance?
We don't take insurance in our office. We keep our office prices very low. And to someone who cannot afford to be seen is still seen. So we take care of anyone according to need. And our office visits are $75 for the first visit and $50 for each additional, if we're talking about office visits. The interesting thing about our office visits, standard office visit with a medical doctor is around 7 to 10 minutes. Depending on what your need is, I've spent 4 hours with a patient before in the past.
I'm a witness. I know that.
Alex Irina Wood also asks, what's the point to be a vegan when you cannot afford organic and non-GMO vegetables?
Okay.
Very good question.
Well, the first thing I would probably look for is local farmers, because they're going to be less expensive. And if you really compare a slab of meat at, I don't know how much ground beef costs per pound, but that would be, of course, a cheaper cut of meat. Well, what does ground beef cost per pound? I really don't know since I don't buy it, but I assure you per pound that's a lot more expensive than to get some even frozen broccoli. If we must go frozen, get some frozen broccoli, get some frozen peas, get some peanut butter. There are things that are inexpensive that are nourishing. Potatoes are not expensive. Rice is not expensive.
Do you believe that everything needs to be bought organic?
I think that we need to try, but I think that unfortunately they use the term a little bit more freely than it should be, and it's not always accurately organic.
Alex Irina Wood also asks, are you saying that the manufacturers who pledge that they don't treat their animals with hormones and antibiotics don't tell us the truth?
I'm actually going to say that in my experience with going to everything from, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the company names, but I will, and face some consequences, but your Cargill and your Tyson, Purdue, things like that. The commission says that as long as you don't inject that animal 72 hours before you slaughter it, you can call it hormone-free, antibiotic-free, and
wow,
that's very significant to me. And it's interesting, if you go to certain restaurants, they'll say that that there's no added hormones. And there's a lot to be said about the way things are worded.
Exactly.
Because of course, there's no added hormones after they're cooking it, but that's the way that a lot is the way it's worded.
Very deceiving. It's true how it's worded.
We have to reach towards eating the way we're supposed to based on what our bodies are made. For instance, look at a cat. Cat has the canines, the claws. Cat is a carnivore. If you give the cat a salad, the cat's going to die.
Exactly.
But if you look at a human being, look at our teeth. Everyone talks about our canine teeth. These are not canine teeth to hold our kill. Our teeth are made to grind and to tear, just slightly in the front. If you look at our saliva, if you look at our fingernails, if you look at our digestive system,
everything's designed for us to digest
starches. and fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables.
So anything aside from eating starches, fruits, and vegetables is going to create an inflammatory response in the body.
So if we choose to eat those other foods, they need to be supplemental rather than principal food, correct?
Right. And of course, right now, they're principal foods. If you go out to a restaurant and they give you the menu, they're going to want to know what meat you want. Everything else is considered a side because it's unimportant. It's insignificant to throw a little bit of green beans, and then they're going to put some fat back in it and some salt and some oil. You ask for a potato, they're going to roll it in grease and put some salt on it. Everything, it's very difficult. If you want to eat healthy and inexpensive, you need to eat at home and try to go to things like farmers markets and local farmers.
And to begin with, if you are not ready to stop eating meat and dairy, we at least have to flip-flop, our perception of principal food and complementary food, correct? Correct.
You have to start with the moderation and work yourself up. That's what you have to do. But if you're very seriously ill, you need to stop the stuff that's harming your body instantly. And really, all of us need to stop the things that have harmed their body. And I'm a perfect example of that, as any of our viewers see. I have spent some years when I was in college eating very convenient foods. Convenience foods got me through a lot of study time and so forth, but it also harmed my body. And so when I went to Dr. McDougall's, I was suffering not only with obesity, but with hypertension. And he brought that down with nothing but diet in 10 days. When in fact I had been through traditional doctors and medications. I had tried 5 different medications for the hypertension. And,
amazing. Our time, unfortunately, is coming to an end. Dr. Rebecca, thank you so much for being here. And before we end, briefly, I would like to ask you to leave our audience with some wisdom from you.
Oh, dear.
Special message.
Quality of life. It is all about the quality of life. Wake up in the morning, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the moment, the fresh air, the nature. And that's what we're here for, is the quality of life. And certainly look us up, check out our website, thermalife.net, and learn about us. And we look forward to meeting anyone that gives us a call, would like to come out to our office. We do phone consultations even for those who are shut in or live far away. And we also make house calls.
Excellent. This was Dr. Rebecca Paden and Victoria Barayev on the Wave of Health. Our time is coming to an end. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next week on Thursday at 6 o'clock again.